Welcome to the Youngpreneur podcast, a show for young and aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start or scale their own business. Our podcast is dedicated to helping young people find a community and resources to start and grow their businesses. Hosted by Charlotte Enever and Linda Reed Enever, our passion is seeing the future of business grow.
Welcome to the Youngpreneur Society podcast. I am your host, Charlotte Enever, where we talk about running a business for young entrepreneurs like yourself. My guest for today's show is Dawn Lewis, a professional crafter and business owner who runs her own stamp and craft store in New South Wales. Thanks, Dawn, for joining me today. Would you like to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
My name is Dawn Lewis. I am a stamp store owner on the central coast of New South Wales. I host the Craft Room podcast, and I am a chicken whisperer, fun fact.
So what motivated you to get into the crafting kind of area?
Oh, craft was an everyday occurrence in my house. My mum made all our clothes. She made all our decor, curtains, cushion covers. If it could be made, my mum would make it. I thought everybody's mum did that. Turns out we were just poor. And it used to be that it was so much cheaper to make things than it was to buy them ready-made. These days it's a little bit flipped. But it was just like that in our house. We just dabbled in all sorts of things. And craft was cheap.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good way to get into it because, if you do dabble, then you know a lot.
The fun thing was that back in the 70s, the 80s, it was one craft at a time. So one craft was queen. There were all the little fringe dwellers, but it was a one craft at a time. I remember doing macrame, making little macrame cord, and Mum could only get the macrame cord that was on sale. So it was bright orange. It was the 70s. It was totally era appropriate. Wooden beads were all the rage. But we did macrame and everybody did macrame. And then that macrame phrase was over and we would pick up something else. Tile painting, fake Cabbage Patch dolls in the 80s because we were poor. So dolls and things made out of stockings that were stuffed. So things like the cottage craft, I think that one was in the early 80s where you covered photo albums and picture frames with wadding and pretty floral fabrics. And there was a lot of lace that was involved. And we did whatever the thing was. And Mum would also teach other ladies how to do that. She'd run craft classes out of our home. So I watched my mum doing this and I just thought that was normal. It also appealed to me because at my core, I'm a teacher. More than anything else, I love to teach somebody something that they don't know.
Nice. Where did you start on your entrepreneurial journey? What was the big starting point there?
I'm so glad you asked me that. So I have one sibling, my sister, and she is a serial employee and I am a serial entrepreneur. I've had jobs and of course I've worked for other people, but at the core of it, I've always had a side hustle. I've just always done it. I think in high school, I used to sew outfits for my classmates for school discos and blue light discos. I never went. I had zero interest in it, but they would go, oh, I got this cool fabric and could you make me this? So I would make them, I don't know, a fancy top or something like that. And they go, oh, I'll give you $5. And I'm like, wow, $5, sweet. And $5 and I was an entrepreneur.
I'd probably do it for $5 too.
Back in the 80s, $5 was a decent slab of cash.
Yeah, any teenager it is at this point.
True. Before you sort of know what things cost, $5 seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, it does. My friends and I, we never actually traded in money. I got one of my friends to play this game called Twerk Pong. And it was like...
I'm familiar. I've seen it.
Yeah, for 2 hours of wearing these orange heart-shaped sunglasses. I don't know how I pulled it off, but I did. And I'm proud of it.
Hey, look. The heart wants what the heart wants. What can I say?
Yeah, he just really wanted these heart-shaped sunnies, and I was like, cool.
I've done my fair share of trading for skills and time and expertise and things that I've made as well. Someone's gone, oh, I'll make you a cake if you'll paint me a figurine. I've dabbled in a lot of things. And I think in the 90s, I got really serious about it because I was out of school. I was working. And then I spent 6 months in secretarial college learning how to touch type and do shorthand. I no longer do shorthand, but I do touch type. I do believe it's one of the top 3 skills I've learned in my life. very helpful. I can type very quickly
Oh,
without
yeah.
looking. I love that skill. And it lets me do what I do now with great efficiency. But I was working in a bookshop when I was at college. On weekends, I washed wedding jaguars on like at 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings at $5 a jag. And in the middle of winter, I can tell you that's probably one of the least pleasant jobs that I've done,
Yeah.
washing cars in the freezing cold. But I just always had a side hustle. And if it wasn't working for someone else, it was selling something. And I think what really turned me from side hustle to business mode was the fact that I would get completely obsessed with one craft and I would do it all the time. And that would give me a lot of finished projects. And what was I going to do with them? I had nowhere to put them. In the 90s, I did hobby ceramics. And I loved it. I went to the studio once a week and cleaning up greenware and painting. And I ended up with all these figurines and statues and pots and teapots. And what can I do with them? I don't need this many. I've made it. Now what do I do with it? So I started selling them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that signed my fate, signed and sealed. So oftentimes when I had a business, it was because I was just completely hyper-focused on this one thing. And it changed. It was hobby ceramics. And then one day I decided I'd never wanted to do that again. And then I did ironing for somebody. And then I went, oh, it's too hot. I can't handle standing for this long. I'm not going to do that anymore. Oh, look, I've discovered how to make folk art painting, quilling, card making, scrapbooking, you name it. If I found a hobby, I would just do it to death. And then I had no choice but to monetize it. Because what was I going to do with all of these finished things?
Even in 6-bedroom houses, not enough room to put all the stuff. Like even the stuff that I made so many scrunchies back in COVID. They weren't very good, but there was a lot of them.
That's the thing, though. The way that you take a new skill and monetize it, there are a few things to think about there. The first is that I did it because I ended up with so many, like just so many of something. I just went, well, I guess I'll sell these. I still like making them, but I don't really want to keep them. So I'll sell them. You can donate things and you can do that. But it's in going from complete beginner, I've never made this or had this skill before. It's in making an enormous quantity that you improve your skills. And a lot of people think, oh, I've picked up hoop embroidery. They make one and go, oh, I'm going to sell these, because there's an expectation that if you have a hobby, you should monetize it. It's not always the case. For me, it's because I have 47 rag dolls. What am I going to do with 47 rag dolls? I should probably put an Etsy shop up and sell these. I still want to make dolls. I just don't want to have dolls. So for me, it was a logical step. But there are some hobbies I actually don't monetize, like quilting. I only quilt for myself. I thought about it once and then I changed my mind, because if you turn your hobby into a business, you don't have a hobby anymore. You have work and you need to get a new hobby. Try not to monetize that one too quickly. Yeah. But I liked it. I found that I liked business suited me. I did wedding accessories, like little bags for brides and ring pillows. My mum gave us huge, like 4 huge garbage bags of bridal fabric and lace leftovers, because her sister made them, and anytime she had leftovers from a wedding dress, she'd chuck it in a bag, and then a sister would go, oh, I know someone who'd like that. So I had all this incredible quality stuff. And yes, so I love a good business.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of different things, but selling handmade is where I gravitated. And then one day I was selling handmade, but I found myself with a really unique opportunity to do something different, still in the craft world, but different. And I desperately wanted to do it, but it was a little outside my comfort zone. I mentioned folk art. So I did folk art for a long time, and I joined an association. When I was in the folk art phase, there was a lady whose books I was just completely enamored with. And I actually emailed her one day and said, like, how did you get from I like painting to having a book published? Because I thought I would love to have a book published. What are the steps? What did she do that got her here? And her email back was like, oh, I don't really know. I guess I was just in the right place at the right time. I just got lucky. And it was the single most unsatisfactory answer I've had to a question in my life.
Yeah, and that's so annoying because there's no other way you can ask that question to get a better answer. It's just the people going, oh, yeah, I guess I was just there. No, you weren't.
Well, because I got this unsatisfactory answer, it kind of, I don't know, it lit something in my brain, and my brain's, there needs to be a better answer to this question. Maybe if I do it, I can write it down or I can remember it. And then if someone asks me that question one day, I'll have a better answer. So I'm so glad you asked me that question, Charlotte.
Yeah.
So I was still doing folk art. I was in the folk art world. I went into a craft show, and the first thing I'll say is look for opportunities and talk to people in the world that you want to be in. So I'm wandering around the show and I came past an association. Now, normally a young person will walk past one of these, and I think I was probably in my late 20s at the time. They ignore the associations because that booth is packed with seniors. And you think, oh, boring committee meetings, no thank you. And you just move on and you buy something at the next pretty booth that catches your attention. But I was determined to connect with people who were in the world I wanted to be in. And at the time it was folk art. So I stopped and chatted to this lady. She was super nice. She was so friendly. And she encouraged me to join the association. But at the time I lived way out in Western Sydney, and they met much more in inner Sydney. And she said, oh, there's a local association where you live. I ended up joining the big association in Sydney and the local. And through that, I met some really interesting people, and I learned some very important things. People say it's not what you know, it's who you know. You got to hang out with people who know stuff, right? So that you can learn the stuff. So I started hanging out with the people, and one of the great opportunities that I had was with the big Sydney Association. They had an exhibit at the big craft show in Sydney every year. I think it's the Quilt and Craft Show at Darling Harbour. They had a huge section, and as a member, I could put things in to sell. I was all over that. I couldn't wait to do it. And the only catch was that I had to volunteer for at least one day. And I went, if I volunteer on a Sunday, it means that I can just drive in, do my volunteer, hang out, watch and hope and see, well, is anyone going to buy my stuff? And then anything that's not sold, I can pack it up and take it home. I only had to take one trip. So that was really nifty.
Yeah.
And I was doing that one year, and I saw a lady walking around. She had a notepad and she was looking at people's work and she was writing down. How those big sales work is everyone, whenever I had something for sale, there would be a price tag on it and there was a unique code on it. It's all very paperworky and I really enjoy it. But she was going around, she was checking codes and writing them down. And I saw her go up and ask to talk to the president of the association. She said, we've got this new paint brand. We're looking for some people to play with it, test it, make some worked models with it, and be a rep for our brand, like a design team member. And I remember thinking, please let my code be on the list, please. And I snuck a look at it later and my code was not on the list. And I went, oh, say la vie. But a couple of weeks later, I got a phone call from the president, who was very lovely. And she said, hey, there was this lady at the show. And I'm like, the one with the list? Yeah, I saw her. I'm not on the list. She said, yeah, but everyone on the list already reps for these two other paint brands. And this is bright and bold. It's right up your alley. I think you'd be suitable. I told her that you would call. Here's her number. You better call her. And I was like, okay, can I do this? Am I allowed to do this? So I found myself, I called her. I didn't want to let the president of the association down. I called her. I went in all the way over to the Shire. It was a long drive over. And I drove home after being there for hours, and my car was full of free product, which very cool, and
Yeah.
an invitation to play with it, take some photos, let them know what I was doing. This is pre-digital cameras. So I painted a bunch of things. I took pictures. I had the film developed. I put them in an envelope and posted it to them. They loved it. And they asked me to come and out to a trade show where all their retailers would come for the weekend. So it was a Saturday and Sunday and then another Saturday. And my job was just to sit and paint all day, and they were going to pay me. I'm like, are you serious? You're going to pay me to sit and paint all day and just talk to people about the products I was using? Apparently they had never sold so many paint and brushes. And I got my foot in the door of a major brand supplier to Spotlight stores. because I didn't listen to the voice in my head that was saying, you're a fake, you're a fraud, they're going to find out, you'll never work in the industry, you may as well not go. And I'm like, no, I want this so badly. I ignored all those voices telling me I was a fake, that I would be found out. And I went and I did the work, and I worked with them right up until they closed. I designed for brands like Martha Stewart and DMC embroidery threads, Milford crochet cottons. So I was doing that whilst at the same time also selling handmade. So I was like actually working in the craft industry, which was wild. I got to tour around Spotlight stores, I think back in 2010, when they brought Martha Stewart products to Australia to Spotlight. And I went to 20 stores in 5 states over 10 days. And I did demonstration after demonstration, packed up, went to the next store, did another demonstration, and had a blast doing it. I designed cross-stitch kits for them. I had my own range of cross-stitch kits in Spotlight. It was really cool. I still pinch myself. I can't believe it. So they said, we want something cute. Do you want to design something? I'm like, what about cute teddy bears? And oh, yeah. So I did like a bride and groom, a baby girl, baby boy, something for a birthday. I don't know. I think there were like six or 8 in the range. So I painted them.
Oh.
They sent me the patterns, the threads and everything. I stitched them up, made corrections, figured out how much thread should go in each kit, and sent them back. And one day they walked into a Spotlight store and there were my cross stitches on the wall. I don't even know if I got a photo of that. I think it was pre-smartphone, so I would have had to take a camera with me. But
yeah,
it was a wild ride. It was so fun because once they figured out I knew how to cross stitch, I knew how to paint, I knew I could do paint by numbers or freestyle painting, I could do embroidery, I could do beading, I could use literally every product that they sold. Then they utilized me for that, and they utilized me a lot. I did a trade show in 2011, and that coincided with me teaching at a local scrapbooking store. And both of those things collided one day when I said yes to another opportunity that my brain was screaming at me to not do because I was a fake and I would be found out. But I wanted it so badly that I just did it. I put myself with people who knew what they were doing, who knew the craft. And while I will never master a craft to like proper expert level, I'm your entry level person for craft. My husband calls me a craft dealer. I will get you hooked on the craft. If you outgrow me, my greatest thrill is being outgrown as a teacher. If someone outgrows anything I can teach them, I very happily hand them on to the expert because I'm no expert. I just know a little bit about a lot of things, and I see opportunities and say yes, even though it's terrifying. And everything in my brain is saying, oh, no, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, but I want to do that. And so I say yes. So while I was designing for Brand Corp and I was teaching at the local scrapbooking shop, my kids were older. I had a little bit more freedom to do extra things. I was selling handmade dolls, teaching Copic marker colouring classes and scrapbooking and card making classes. I got an offer from the store owner because a paper crafting television show was filming in the store. Is anybody interested? Pick me, I said. So I had a friend who I met over 21 years ago when I started working at a scrapbooking shop. She introduced me to an online group, a swap group, where we would make things and swap them with each other, all handmade. And the girl who ran that group, she and I stayed friends up until, sadly, she passed away last year. And anytime something like that came up, she was the one they were filming at the store. In the stamping industry, she was a huge deal, like big deal, but the most down-to-earth person you could ever hope to. And so I went, oh, I'll come in. And she's, yeah, you should come in. Tony will really like you. So it was this little show called Scrap It TV. It was Australian, very low budget on some insignificant Foxtel channel. And then it came to one of those little baby channels that we started getting. And I went and I filmed a segment and he liked what I did. And I like talking.
Yeah.
Probably by now is coming as no surprise to anyone who's listening here. But I like talking and I like teaching. And so I thought, oh my goodness, I can do a YouTube video, but a television show, that's going out to everybody. That's so different to teaching at my local shop where I've got maybe 5 students in a class. I can teach something on television. So I did my one segment. He really liked it. He found me at the trade show I was doing with Brand Corp, and we filmed another segment because I had a bunch of product there that I had designed for. So he filmed me at the trade show. And then the following year, I get a phone call. Hey, I want to know, are you interested in being in the next season? I'm like, oh, yes, please. Coolest job I have ever had in my entire life. And I got to do, he said, oh, can you do 2 segments? I'm like, yep, no problem. I turned up and he's okay. So those 3 segments. So I had to make one up on the spot. And I did 3 segments. And then I got a phone call and they're like, do you want to come back again? Yes, please. And he said, this year we're going to have a host. I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. What will the host do? Oh, interview all the scrapbooker of the year winners from this magazine and do some intros. I'm like, oh, that's great. Who's going to host? He's, oh, you. Okay. All right. And I just kept saying yes. I said yes. And I shushed the voices in my head and I just learned as I went. I joined in season 3 and I ended up hosting seasons 5, 6, and 7. And it was just incredibly cool. It sparked my absolute love and obsession with video because I could teach more people how to use this thing that they've bought. And it was in season 7, I had been selling handmade dolls. And after making that doll over 900 times and literally thousands of dolly jeans and skirts, that I went, I never want to make a doll again for the rest of my life. And I bought a set of stamps from America and I liked them. They were really cool. And I went online to look, can I buy them in Australia? No. So I emailed the owner and said, look, I'm filming this television show in Australia. Is it okay if I use your stamps for a segment? She's, oh, yes, you can do that. Please do that. I said, you don't have anyone selling them. Could I sell them? And she said, sure. And I parted ways with $100. And I bought a very tiny amount of stamps. I used them on the show. I ran all the show's social media. I had free reign and I marketed them and I sold them. I had an audience and I monetized it. And now I stock over 3,000 different products in my online store.
Very nice.
I just kept saying yes, and then I figured it out as I went. I didn't know anything about selling retail. It's very different from selling handmade, but I sell to people who make things.
Yeah, I don't think there's a little guidebook on it or anything, so you do just have to go for it sometimes.
That's exactly right. There is no guidebook. And when I first became interested in selling handmade stuff, I had to go to the library and see if there was a book. And how do you even search for something like that? There were no computer catalogs. Pre-internet, I learned how to become an entrepreneur before there were mobile phones and internet. I just watched and learned and watched and learned and watched and learned. I worked retail. I worked in an office for many years and I love people, but could teach someone how to make something. Oh, there's nothing like that. So when I found a book, I devoured it. I absolutely devoured it. And I tried to put everything into practice. And I made things and I sold them, and I made things and I sold them. And then I figured out how to make a profit and how to track my numbers. And I learned how to make a website, and I learned it all from scratch. Trial and error, so much trial and error. Nowadays, there's so much information.
Yeah, having that experience before there was so much information, though, is great, because I can Google anything. And I feel like that's an advantage to getting where you want to be faster, but also you don't learn much from Googling.
It's got its pros and cons because all the information is out there. So one thing that I teach is I teach people how to colour with Copic markers, which are these spectacular art markers. I'm an authorised stockist. I'm a certified instructor, but I'm still learning information about how to do that. Now, all of the information is out there on the internet for free. The amount of time it takes to find it and sift through what is correct and what's incorrect, if your time is valuable, it's actually better value to sit with someone who knows what they're doing and learn it from one person who's experienced, who knows what they're talking about. And it comes down to, whenever you're learning this stuff, if you've got no money to invest into, becoming an entrepreneur, you have to spend time. But if you've got no time, you have to spend money to save the time. There's only 2 things that you can spend, time or money.
Yeah, and you really have to look at it that way, because I think some people go, oh, this isn't going to work because I haven't got any money, so I have to start Googling. But then I feel like once they get started up, You forget, because I forget. I start to get the money and then I go, oh, but I don't want to spend that money. But then you have to spend like 3 days or 3 nights, really, just after school or work or whatever you've been doing, sitting there, Googling, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And when you start a business, it's shoestring all the way. When I started this business, it was on a serious shoestring budget. I still do almost everything myself. I have an accountant for the money things. When I actually figured out how to turn a profit, I had to get an accountant to do all my things, but I balked at that for a really long time. But it hit a point where I was making enough money that I could afford the accountant, but I didn't have the time to figure that out, how to do that by myself. She's probably the best investment I've made. But in the beginning, I started with a Facebook page. It was free. And when I got a website, I got something very bare bones that was free. And then I learned more and I spent more, and it's little bit by little bit. I spent as little as possible on product. I've got a photo somewhere from a quilt show. I took my stuff to a quilt show. I went to help my friend with her stand. She owns a quilting store, and she's bring your stamps with you. And so I did demonstrations on how you could stamp on fabric and color with markers. I think somewhere in the ye olde of my YouTube channel, I've still got a video about that. People still comment on it. And all of my product fit in a basket that was like 15 centimeters by 5 centimeters. All of my product I could hold in one hand. And now I've got all of this, which is wild.
Yeah, I love seeing the progress with anybody. But I also feel like it's sometimes hard to look back and then remember and also realize that you've come from little handful to big room.
Yeah, 100%. You pick a thing, you try it out if you like it. Now, for me, I have 2 ways that something can go if I'm interested in it. It could be a hyper focus. Generally, the lifespan on that's about 4 months. Or it can be a long-term interest, and that can last for years and years, like 5, 10, 20 plus years. And knowing what something's going to be when I pick it up it's next to impossible. I have found that I love businessy things. That's a long-term interest for me. Whereas sometimes I'll get in a brand, I'll be really excited about it in the shop here, and then they don't have very many releases or it's not very popular, and I lose excitement for that brand, and then I run it out. And then usually I'm spot on. It's usually brands where there's a big change in the company that's not such a big thing. But back in the day when I was picking up crafts, I might pick something up and do it for 4 months, and then I was done with it. Macrame was definitely short term. Or I might pick something up and stick with it for 5 years, like Hobbies ceramics, or making handmade dolls for little girls and boys to love and dress, and that had their hair color and their eye color. When I was doing dolls, there's a piece of software I use now. Oh, wish I'd had it back then. And it was free. I could have been using something for free that would have saved me so much time going back and forth. And for a long time, you can manage with free resources. You can manage with a MailChimp emailing thing for free. But then there comes a time where you outgrow it, and you have to realize that, oh, this is a steady outgrowth. I think I'm actually going to have to pay for an emailing company now, and I don't really like that one. I think I'll try this one. And it's a big step because they're like, oh, that'll be $300 up front. And then I remember if I send an email and I showcase some products, I usually get a bunch of sales. So that's going to pay for that. But in the early days of transitioning from shoestringing it upwards, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and there's always like the second guessing if it's actually going to be worth it. But most of the time, it is worth it.
Yeah, some things I'll dive headfirst into and I will just buy the stuff. Podcasting was one of those for me. When I record my own podcast here in the office, because it's so full of product that I can do that, and it's very dense. It absorbs all the sound. I have proper microphones. I have my fancy recorder. I'm a bit of an audio nerd. Dynamic microphones are great. No one will ever convince me otherwise. I bought that stuff. I just went out and I bought it because I knew that I would use it, because I've always had an interest in microphones and talking. I asked my friend who passed last year when I was first thinking of starting a podcast. She's like, oh, that's perfect for you. And I'm like, yeah, I might do some long episodes. I might do some 5-minute episodes. And when I said that, she threw her head back and laughed so heartily. and said, there's no way you can just talk for 5 minutes. And she was right. And she encouraged me to do that. She was actually pivotal in me doing what I'm doing now. And she was really sneaky about it, like really stealthy. She was really good at encouraging me to do things. She was the one who linked me to the television show. And I'm like, you sure I could do this? She's, you will be great at this. And I really enjoyed it. And I was great at it. And, I'm starting a podcast. Yes, you should do that. You'll be great at that. Would I be insane if I started my own stamp company? She's yes and no, because she owned a stamp company at the time. But yeah, it was a yes and no. And she encouraged me to do all sorts of fun things. I went to the US in 2020, right before pandemic hit, to a huge trade show. I'd been wanting to do it for 20 years. And I said to her, I think I might go next year. She says, I'm going. This is the hotel I'm staying at. She walked me in there. She introduced me to people. She secretly, stealthily, quietly and subtly changed my whole life.
Yeah. And it's a big part of how you feel about things and like jumping into things is who you're around.
100%. They say you are like the 5 people you spend most time with. I think that doesn't include people who live in your house. And at the time, I had some people that I was spending a lot of time with who were a bit negative. And I started spending time with people who were where I wanted to be and an attitude that I wanted to have. And instead of being surrounded by people who are like, oh, no, couldn't do that. But what if we could do that? But often we look at these opportunities and we go, oh, I don't think I could do that. And then the question is, but what if you could? She always said that to me. Find yourself your Rachel, that person who just knows you've got this covered. You absolutely can do that. Make mistakes, do it really badly at first, and then the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like anything. You have to build an enormous body of work to become good at something.
Yeah.
Just because you're not good at it now doesn't mean you can't be good at it later.
Yeah, and as much as it may seem like some people are good at things just overnight or they were just born with it, most of the time they weren't.
Absolutely true. People who look like an overnight sensation, they're not an overnight sensation. They've been working on it for years. I would hate to be an overnight sensation because I wouldn't have any experience behind me. And when you first start doing something, you make so many mistakes. And if you have an itty bitty audience, then no one's going to see you make the mistakes. Make them because you learn so much from them. But organic growth, oh, I'm so grateful that I grew organically and didn't have this sudden success. I've watched a few stamp companies in my industry where they have just suddenly, everything's blown up for them. They put out one stamp set or one die set, like they've done something that's made them instantly mega popular and they've got no infrastructure in place to deal with it.
And with the cancel culture around and just the whole culture of TikTok and stuff, like the faster you climb, the faster you're going to fall.
The faster you climb, the less steady you can be. Like if you think about rock climbing, if you've ever done indoor rock climbing or actual outdoor rock climbing, why anyone would do that is beyond me. I'm an inside person. But if you're racing really quickly up that wall, you can't be sure of your footing. You don't have good technique. Sometimes you get there just by luck and you haven't considered how you're going to get back down. Like there's no game plan. Moving slowly through something, oh, big fan.
Yeah, and you haven't had time to pick out the spot where you're just going to take a second, breathe, maybe have a bite of your sandwich, and then continue.
Yeah, exactly right. And if you make a little mistake, it's a little mistake. If you make a mistake much further up, it's going to be a much bigger mistake. And there's more people who are going to see it. I still stand by it. Everybody makes mistakes. Mistakes are a fantastic way to learn. But sometimes you need to stop and figure out in which direction am I going to go. I've been doing this a long time. I think I'm in my 9th year of doing this business. And I'm now sitting and I'm actually looking, which direction am I going to go? Am I going to keep going straight ahead? Or do I want to try this? Or do I want to maybe try over there? And I can still keep moving, but go, if I go here, if I move this way, if I go like that, how's that going to look? What will I need to do that? Sometimes I say, oh, that's exciting. I dive in and then go, oh, this was a bad idea.
Yeah, and like that constant movement, if you are constantly moving, you have to look around and you're always on guard with a lot of things, which can lead to mistakes and everything because there's just too much going on.
If you overcommit, man, mistakes all the time. I can tell when I am crispy burned out and overcommitted because I start making mistakes, because I can't be good everything all at once. And I know it sounds like I do a lot of things. I do a lot of things and I have done a lot of things, but I can only do one thing today really well. Everything else might not be done super well. So if I am killing it in my business today, being super efficient, putting in orders, getting stuff on the website, doing graphics, figuring out glitches, answering emails, I have given zero thought to what I'm going to make for dinner tonight. I've forgotten to put laundry on and I'll have no cozies to wear to the pool tomorrow. Like, I can only do one thing really well today.
Yeah.
But tomorrow I might choose to do something different and do it well. And maybe I won't be killing it in my business. Maybe I'll be killing it at something else. I'm Gen X. The biggest lie that was sold to our generation is the superwoman myth, that you can have it all.
Yeah.
You can have it all, but not all at once. And you can have it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good to have it all. You can't do everything all at once. And depending on the way your brain is wired, some people thrive on that. Some people crash and burn. You got to know yourself, know what you're good at. And sometimes you can only know what you're good at by someone saying, hey, do you want to try this? And you're like, yeah. I like to say yes to lots of things. Sometimes that's to my detriment because I say yes to too many things and then I'm overstretched.
Yeah. And like, you're here because you said yes to like all of those really cool things along the way.
100%. I said yes, I tried it. Thankfully, I liked it. I think the key for me has been knowing what the core is that I'm really good at. For me, it's teaching. I really love teaching, and I can extend that in any craft I've learned. And I've done a lot of volunteering. Like, I worked for free in the beginning, a lot, for free or next to nothing. And that's how I honed my skills in front of a very small audience. And if I made a mistake, there was like only 5 people in a room who saw it, not the whole internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saying yes to stuff is great. Overcommitting can be tricky and it's going to be different for everyone. But understand what your core function is. My core function is teaching. If I've learned it, I will share it. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's great because there's a really good like level of satisfaction with teaching from what I've seen. I'm probably not the best teacher, but I've seen other people and like when whoever they're teaching has learned something, they just look so happy.
Yeah, there is nothing like that. They're really, for me, I've known this about myself since I was very little. I remembered lining all my dolls and toys up when I was like 4 years old to teach them. I always wanted to be a teacher. It was only like halfway through year 12 that I said to my parents, I was going to uni. I was going to become a primary school teacher. And then I babysat some kids. And I realized that 30 of them in a room was not for me. And halfway through year 12, I said, I'm not going to uni. I'm not doing that. And my parents, very calm. That's all right. What do you want to do? I'm like, I'm going to finish up the HSC. I'm going to get a job and then figure out what I want to do. So I took a gap year and I worked. I got a secretarial degree. I worked in offices. I don't have a university degree. I don't even have a TAFE course under my belt. I just learned it all on the go. I figured it out as I went along. I Googled, I read books, I asked people. I talked to people who know more than me. Always have someone who's a couple of steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's great. And I just did it that way. And it's worked for me. I see no need to go and get a degree. I like what I do.
Yeah, and it's really important because I know in school you can only go to uni. Otherwise, you're not going to end up where you want to be, even though that's not where you want to be. But that's where you want to be to actually get money. But then I suppose you could go to TAFE. There's so many other ways to do anything.
There are so many things that you can do. So just find something that you like. I saw an ad in the local paper for a secretarial course. No, honestly, I can't even remember how much it cost, but I saved up for it while I was working full-time in a chemist. I just worked in a chemist shop for a year, teeny tiny little independent chemist. And I saved up my money and I went and I learned how to type and take shorthand and be a secretary. We even had a computer. It ran on DOS. It was pre-Windows. I feel so old right now. But I learned how to use a computer and type and take notes. Again, I got lucky. It was who I knew. I knew a lady who worked for a big accounting company, a really big accounting company. And she's, they're hiring for secretaries. Why don't you apply? So I did. She put in a good word. I worked there. I worked there for years and years, and then I job hopped to different offices. But I love paperwork. I love typing fast. I love it. I love talking on the phone. I love being a receptionist. I get to talk to people. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
And it wasn't teaching, but I always had something on the side.
Yeah.
Someone said, oh, could you teach me how to? Yep. Doesn't matter. I'll teach anybody anything, even if I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Because you can always figure it out. I think there's always opportunities for people to figure it out.
And if you get an opportunity, take it. Take it. Figure out what you like. Figure out what you don't like. Figure out what you're good at. And honestly, I like this because for me, it's easy. Something I don't have to battle through all of this. This for me is easy. Connecting with my customers, easy. Teaching people how to use the stuff that I stock, easy. Being on a computer and typing up spreadsheets for 3 or 4 hours straight, easy. It's all stuff that I enjoy, and very rare that I have a day where I'm like, don't feel like working today. And I do it because it's flexible. So I figured out what I was good at. It aligns with my core values. I get to talk to people, which I love, even if I'm just talking on a live video and they're typing back with response. I just love that so much. And it's flexible around my kids who struggled at school, and it's now flexible around me who has a couple of chronic health conditions. And some days I'm perfect and other days I'm in bed, can't get out. But there's always something I can do, even if I'm sitting on the couch. I can be adding product to the shop from the couch. It's not demanding on my body at all. So I love the flexibility of it. I designed a job that suits me, and it will suit me well into old age, even though I know it sounds like I'm really old.
Yeah, but it's great to have, to own your own business because you can design it to be for you because it is yours.
Exactly. You can design it so that it fits with your strengths, and you can pick and choose what you offer, who you offer it to. I have very strong core belief that I don't have sales because that's not the kind of customer I'm looking to attract. I've done a really good job, almost accidentally, of attracting the right people to my business because they're here for what I have to offer, not because there's a discount code.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves. You don't have to discount stuff to get customers or clients. Find out what you do that nobody else does, and it'll be something easy. And you won't even think that can be a job. Sometimes it can.
Most of the time it can, because there's so many things you can turn into a job.
There are so many things. And a lot of it you figure out. I think the hardest part is finding the people who want what you have.
Yeah.
Hanging out. That was the hardest thing for me when I started doing this. Like, where are they? Where are the people who want this brand? Like, I've bought this brand. Everyone said they wanted it. No one's buying it. Where are the people who like this? Where are the Australians who like this? I've never had a Facebook ad. I just provide exceptional customer service wherever possible. If I make a mistake, I fess up to it and I fix it. Even if it costs me money, I fix it because I want people to have a good shopping experience. There are some people who won't shop with me, and that's fine. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But for the most part, I don't have to promote myself all that much because my customers do it for me. They're the best. They're great.
Thank you so much for joining me.
You're so welcome.
I would like to thank Dawn Lewis again for joining me on this episode of the Youngpreneur Society podcast. I'm sure our listeners have taken away a lot of insights and lessons from our entrepreneurial journey. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning into our episode. I'll see you again next time.
Thank you for listening to the Youngpreneurs podcast. Like this episode? Remember to subscribe and leave us a review. And join us in the Youngpreneur Society, a community for young entrepreneurs to explore the world of business. youngpreneursociety.com